We all know the feeling. The moments when the red lights turn green exactly as you arrive. The phone rings with the very person you were just thinking about. Opportunities appear not through struggle, but as if they were waiting for you to walk by. We usually call this luck. We treat it like a rare weather pattern that arrives without warning and leaves without explanation. But have you ever noticed how these streaks of alignment seem to follow a specific internal rhythm? It's as if hidden gears in the background of your life suddenly found their teeth. This flow is not a random coincidence. It is the visible result of a precise mechanical process. When things start falling into place, you aren't just being lucky. You are finally witnessing the true architecture of your reality. We have all had those days where the world seems to move out of our way. You find the perfect parking spot. The right person calls at the exact moment you need them. Answers to long-standing problems simply appear in your mind during a walk. In these moments, life feels light, as if you are finally swimming with the current instead of against it. But just as quickly, the wind can shift. Suddenly, every task feels heavy, plans fall through, and minor inconveniences pile up until you feel completely stuck. Why does this flow vanish just as quickly as it arrives? Most of us have overlooked a subtle reality. These shifts are not happening to us, but because of us.
There is a repeating pattern in these cycles that many people miss. It suggests that your external environment is reacting to an internal setting you might not even know you've toggled. Watch closely, because the mechanism behind this is far simpler than most people imagine. We often categorize our lives into good phases and bad streaks. On some days, you feel an invisible wind at your back. You think of a solution, and the resources to implement it appear by lunch. You make a spontaneous detour, and it leads you directly to a person you've been meaning to find. These moments feel like a reward, yet we rarely ask what we are being rewarded for. Then the cycle shifts. You begin to experience a strange friction. Simple emails take hours to write. Mechanical things break. People seem uncooperative. Most of us dismiss this as a run of bad luck or a stressful week. But have you ever noticed how these shifts often follow your own internal state? The repetition suggests something deeper than mere chance. This is the strange consistency many people notice, but few actually investigate. We tend to overlook the pattern because we've been taught that reality is a fixed external machine that we must fight against. But the evidence suggests otherwise. The sudden appearance of flow and its sudden disappearance is the first clue that reality is not as solid as it seems. This is where the experience begins to make sense.
We are taught to view excitement as a fleeting emotion, a temporary high that comes and goes. But in reality, excitement is a sophisticated communication system. It is the physical translation of your resonance with a specific version of yourself. When you feel that spark of interest or that sudden impulse to act, you aren't just feeling good, you are receiving a signal from your navigation system. This reveals something important about how reality works. Life doesn't just happen to you, it responds to the frequency you are currently emitting. The luck you experience during those periods of flow is actually your alignment with a version of reality where those opportunities already exist. Suddenly, the pattern becomes easier to understand. The reason things fall into place is that you have finely tuned your internal dial to the station where those events are broadcast. This teaching is far simpler than most people expect because the signal has been present your entire life. You haven't been missing the path, you've just been misinterpreting the compass. This is the hidden rule behind the experience. You are not walking through a single fixed timeline. You are navigating an infinite field of parallel possibilities. This explains why the pattern behaves this way. Every moment of excitement or intuitive pull is not just a feeling, it is a frequency. To understand this, think of a radio.
The music is already being broadcast, but you only hear it when you match the exact frequency of the station. Reality works the same way. When you act on your highest excitement, you are effectively turning the dial. You are shifting your resonance to match a version of reality where the luck and flow you desire are already the natural state of things. This is why the flow disappears the moment we ignore the signal. When you choose a path out of fear or obligation, you are simply changing the channel to a frequency where friction is the primary theme. This mechanism has been operating in your life the entire time, quietly guiding every ordinary decision you make. Suddenly, the shift begins to make sense. You aren't creating the coincidences. You are finally tuning into the version of yourself that is already experiencing them. If the mechanism is so simple, why do we find it so difficult to maintain? The answer lies in our conditioning. This is the moment the inner voice begins to argue. We have been trained to view logic as our primary survival tool and excitement as a mere distraction. Most people mistake this internal resistance for wisdom or responsibility. We tell ourselves that being realistic is the same as being intelligent. But how often do we talk ourselves out of something that felt right, only to watch the momentum of our lives come to a grinding halt? This is where many of us lose the signal. We replace curiosity with caution and wonder with worry.
We become so attached to a specific outcome that we ignore the very impulses meant to guide us toward it. This internal friction is what creates the external stagnation we noticed earlier. When you ignore the spark because it feels illogical, you are effectively stepping off the frequency of flow and back into the frequency of struggle. Have you ever felt that signal and watched yourself talk it away? If you have experienced moments like this, I'm curious to hear how that internal dialogue sounded for you in the comments. To begin shifting your experience, you don't need to change your entire life. You only need to change how you respond to the next 5 minutes. This is how the signal becomes action. The formula is a simple navigation process. First, look at the options available to you right now and identify the one that carries even a tiny bit more excitement than the others. Second, act on that impulse to the best of your ability. Third, follow that thread as far as it naturally leads, without forcing it. And finally, release all attachment to what the outcome should look like. This is where the navigation truly begins. By following the spark without demanding a specific result, you are telling the mechanism that you trust the signal more than your fear. This process works best when followed with a sense of light curiosity rather than the pressure to succeed. What small excitement have you been ignoring recently? How different would a day feel if you followed that signal instead of your caution? If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing for more explorations into the hidden mechanics of our reality. The shift rarely starts with something dramatic. It usually hides within the most ordinary moments of your afternoon. Imagine you are working on a routine task when a sudden, quiet curiosity nudges you to look up a topic you haven't thought about in years. Your logical mind might dismiss it as a distraction, but instead you follow the formula and spend 5 minutes exploring that spark. This small action leads you to an article, which mentions a specific resource, which reminds you of a person you haven't spoken to in months. You send a quick message, and by evening that person replies with exactly the opportunity you've been looking for. This is often how the shift begins. The small decision to follow the signal changed the entire trajectory of your day. You didn't force the person to call. You simply tuned yourself to the frequency where that connection was already waiting. You have likely experienced similar moments before and dismissed them as mere coincidence. But when you look closer, the pattern becomes undeniable. How many times has a small, intuitive decision changed the direction of your day? The signal appears in these quiet impulses, waiting for you to realize that the path is being built one small excitement at a time. This suggests something remarkable about the nature of reality. We have been conditioned to believe that we are moving through a single, static world, trying to force it to change. But this pattern reveals a deeper meaning. It implies that the life you seek is not something you have to build from scratch. It is a version of reality that already exists as a potential. When you follow the signal of excitement, you aren't just making a better choice. You are literally shifting your position within the structure of existence. This changes the way we understand the experience of flow. It means that falling into place is actually the sensation of your consciousness sliding into a timeline that is already harmonious. The signal is not just an emotion, it is a bridge between the person you are and the person you are becoming. Could these signals be guiding us towards versions of ourselves we have not yet explored? You may already be standing at the threshold of this realization in your own life, noticing that the more you trust the spark, the more the physical world reflects it back to you. Reality is not a solid wall, it is a mirror, waiting for you to find the frequency that reflects your true self. Perhaps the signal has been there all along, hidden in the background of your most ordinary days. The flow you seek isn't a destination you reach, it is a frequency you inhabit.
As you move back into your world, You may begin to notice patterns in daily events that previously seemed random. Small coincidences might carry more weight. Subtle impulses might feel more like directions. Sometimes the shift begins simply by noticing that you are never truly stuck, but merely untuned. How often have these signals appeared quietly in your life, waiting for you to recognize their rhythm? The journey into this alignment is a constant unfolding, and your awareness of the mechanism is the first step toward mastery. If you're curious about the deeper mechanics behind how these signals shape your experience, the next chapter of this exploration dives into that very mystery. It reveals what happens to the fabric of your reality when you consistently follow the spark.